Greetings, programs, and welcome to Tech Tales. I'm Corbin Davenport,
I'm Joe Fedewa.
And I'm Zachary Wander.
and today we are talking about Tron Legacy, the 2010 Disney action movie. If you have not seen Tron Legacy, there will be a link in the show
Don't.
notes to where you can watch it legally. I think as of when we're recording this, it's only streaming on Disney Plus, but you can buy and rent it from all the usual places. So before we get to the movie, I want to talk just very quickly about the production of Tron Legacy because it's kind of weird and interesting. We talked about the first Tron movie. If you haven't seen that and you want to watch Tron Legacy, you don't have to watch Tron. You don't have to. It's optional.
Yeah.
But the first Tron film was released in 1982 by Walt Disney Productions. It was successful, but not successful enough to justify making a sequel immediately. But it did eventually turn into a cult classic over time, which kind of pushed Disney to more seriously consider another Tron movie. One rumor in 1999 said that a Tron movie was being considered by Pixar, which at that point they'd only released Toy Story and A Bug's Life. So this was very early Pixar. I don't know how true that was. Also, it would have been kind of weird if Disney had assigned a Tron movie to them because Disney did not fully own Pixar at that point. They only owned like 5%.
You're telling me we could have had Pixar Jeff Bridges?
Yeah, we could have had Buzz Lightyear in Tron.
I'm imagining Jeff Bridges as like Mr. Incredible.
And then in 2003, Disney released the video game Tron 2.0, which is technically a sequel to the original movie. The actors for Tron and Laura from the original movie returned as voice actors. It's not canon anymore because Tron Legacy exists, but at the time it was like basically Tron 2. Serious production on a new Tron movie started around 2005 with Steven Lisberger returning to produce the movie. Joseph Kosinski signed on as the director. This was actually his first movie he directed.
Wow.
Yeah, but this is the same person who went on to direct Oblivion and Top Gun Maverick, along with some other films. So he's doing great now, but this was his first movie. Disney initially wanted to do something more like The Matrix, which had been released in 1999. It kind of makes sense because that's also a movie where people are in a computer simulation, but Kaczynski didn't really want to do that, which I guess is good because we got something that wasn't really The Matrix out of it. The French electronic duo Daft Punk signed on to compose the soundtrack for Tron Legacy. Daft Punk were huge fans of the original movie, so it was kind of cool. Even though Daft Punk was the only listed credit on the soundtrack for Tron Legacy, the score was orchestrated and arranged by Joseph Trapanese, who later went on to make the soundtrack for the Tron Uprising animated TV show and the remixed tracks for the Tron roller coasters at the Disney parks. So he's kind of done, he worked on this movie and he's also done most of all the Tron stuff since then. So Kaczynski asked Disney to let him produce a concept short film for the new Tron movie so that they could kind of figure out what the visual design would be. That later was shown as a teaser trailer at the 2008 San Diego Comic-Con. At that point, it wasn't like fully greenlit, so it was kind of weird to show a preview for a movie that might not happen, but that's what they did. But yeah, Disney did eventually, fully greenlight the movie, and it was released in 2010. So now we're going to actually talk about the movie. So the movie starts in 1989, which is 7 years after the events of the first Tron film, with Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, saying goodbye to his son Sam Flynn as he's going off at night to supposedly to go work. This scene is our first look at kind of the big technological leap that this movie attempts, which is a digitally de-aged Jeff Bridges. And this is the appearance we get for Kevin Flynn in these flashback sequences. And it's also the face of Clue, which is the program on the grid that Kevin Flynn created. The CGI work for this was done by a company called Digital Domain, which had previously worked on de-aging CGI for the 2008 film The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I found is it took 2 years to create CGI Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, I was noticing in the beginning scenes they were being very dramatic how they weren't showing Jeff Bridges' face. And then there was just the dramatic reveal of the camera panning around. And it felt like someone was very proud of that CGI work. And I don't think they should have been.
I really don't. I'm going to be the Jeff Bridges CGI defender in this episode.
Oh.
I really don't think it was that bad at the time. And I think the slow reveal is like the way to do it too. I think that was cool.
At the time, yeah. Yeah, like it didn't look well.
Well,
I
at the
don't know.
time,
Like, I saw
they
this-
didn't have the technology to do it properly. They should
Yeah.
have realized that they didn't have the technology to do it properly, and
I
not
think
done
it was still fine. I saw this in like friggin' IMAX at the time, and it didn't bother me.
You're wrong.
It's like when I was watching at the time, you know, it's not like I was sitting there thinking, "Wow, it's young Jeff Bridges. That's a real young." Like clearly can tell that it's CGI, but like it wasn't so much that it like turned me off or anything. And I feel like that is what all you can try to accomplish.
I feel like they're trying to go for something special, right, with the CGI, because they could have just used prosthetics, they could have used makeup, they could have even just had an explanation for why he's older, and not done the initial scene where he's young or just kept his face hidden the whole time. So they really wanted to go with the CGI to like show it off, but then it still didn't, like, it wasn't better than the alternatives.
I think prosthetics would not have been as good.
I mean, his mouth movements would have been natural at least.
I think they did this just because the original Tron movie was so groundbreaking. They kind of wanted to do something equally groundbreaking here. And unfortunately it hasn't really aged well. It arguably was not good back then. I don't know. I generally just don't like it when movies do the CGI de-aging, because there's been a lot of movies since then that have done this. Like I just watched Rogue One again recently, which had de-aged. They recreated Grand Moff Tarkin as he appeared in the first Star Wars movie, and it's gotten a lot better since then, but it still looks weird. And like I don't know if this is something that will ever be like indistinguishable from real. It's such a core human trait to like look at faces and look at the movement, like mouth and face movements, and I don't know if that's something that can ever be adequately faked. Maybe if we just get really, really good at motion capture at some point where we can capture every single like muscle movement in a face or something like that. But
I mean, not to like go too far off a tangent right away, but like I don't think you're ever going to be able to do that with any type of thing you use, because even when you use prosthetics, even when the prosthetics are really good, you're still watching and you're knowing that the actor has stuff on that is not their actual face. I just don't think you're ever going to like get rid of that.
Yeah, that's the other part is, you know, there's a lot of times in this movie where I'm like, oh, this is a great movie. I love this movie. And then it gets to, whenever Clue appears, and it's like, oh, right, we're doing this. Like, it just, like, every time a movie does this, same thing when I was watching Rogue One, it just sort of, like, immediately takes you out of whatever is happening. You're like, wow, look at that face. That face is weird.
Yeah. I think for me, like, the first time I see a movie that has it, it's like, then it's very like, oh, wow, look what they did. But then anytime I watch it after the fact, it's like, it doesn't, that's not something I'm
look what they
thinking about
did
as much. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing too, that in this movie that I think helps it is Clue, like young Jeff Bridges mostly exists in environments that are completely like all CGI. Like he's not really in the real world that much in this movie, so I feel like that helps a little bit.
Actually, that would have been an interesting way to get around it, because like it's a fake environment, right? But all the other characters aren't CG faces, so he still stands out. But they could have,
Everyone should have a CGI face.
just make everyone have a CG face. That would have been
No,
groundbreaking.
that would have been so much worse.
Everyone turns into the 3D Simpsons animation from that Treehouse of Horror episode.
We just accidentally make what was that movie? Polar Express. It's just Polar Express.
Oh,
I was
God.
thinking about that a lot with the Jeff Bridges face, because it doesn't have enough texture to look realistic. Like movements aside, which I don't know, like you said, I don't know if we're ever gonna get. It doesn't have enough texture to look right, and it kind of falls into the same uncanny valley as the motion capture stuff in Polar Express, where it's like
Polar Express is definitely a lot worse.
no, it's definitely worse, but it kind of has that same vibe as like it's the uncanny valley. It's just it doesn't look right.
And also when you're watching Polar Express or any of the other other animated movies that have people in them, like everything's on the same level. But in this movie, you see, PS3 Jeff Bridges next to like real human faces constantly, so it sticks out a lot more.
There's some whiplash. It's like, oh, real face. Oh, Jeff Bridges. Oh dear.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Like a lot of the effects are good. Like the light trails on all of the vehicles, those look really cool. And I think it's because like it's not trying to replicate something that's a person's face or even something that's real. It's doing its own thing. It's working within the limitations of technology at the time, and I guess still. But then you run into Jeff Bridges' face and it's jarring.
Jeff Bridges' face is great.
Oh yeah, why don't you marry it?
Well, Jeff Bridges disagrees. He said recently on the Film Comment podcast, quote, "I didn't like the way I looked in it. I felt I looked a lot more like Bill Maher than myself. It was kind of bizarre."
Yeah, a less malnourished Bill Maher.
That was a funny comment. I don't really see Bill Maher.
Anyway, so moving on from young Jeff Bridges' face.
Why?
Well, I'm sure it'll
Why do
come
we
up
have
later.
to do that?
You told me that that's all we were talking about today, Corbin.
Yeah, it's just the face and the music, and we're done.
Oh, wait, hang on. Before we move on from CGI Jeff Bridges, I thought the next scene right after they reveal that of like all the TVs slowly turning on in the void of the news of him disappearing was a cool effect. It was a little weird, but it was
I like
cool.
that a lot.
And it kind of showed how when they weren't trying to draw a human in 2010, they could have some really good effects and some really good like staging.
Yeah. We'll get to it a little bit later, but I do like almost everything about how this movie was designed. Like just everything it looks very cool. But for now, we're still in the real world. And yeah, as you said, Kevin Flynn disappeared after leaving the house that night. So Sam ended up being raised by his grandparents and Alan Bradley, who was the programmer who made Tron in the first movie, and he was still a board member at ENCOM, which was the company that Kevin Flynn was CEO of.
By the way, Tron is an actual character in the movie.
Yes.
It's not just the title. Although he's not really a character in this movie, but he's a character in the original movie.
Yeah, he's even less of a character in this movie.
So then the movie cuts to 20 years later. We have adult Sam Flynn, played by Garrett Hedlund.
Being a spoiled rich kid. Lane splitting his motorcycle in the rain.
Yep, we established that he's very good at driving a motorcycle, which may come up later. So adult Sam is breaking into ENCOM the night the company is holding a big shareholders meeting. I do like that when he's breaking into the building, he goes through a big door that he hacks into with his little Nokia phone, and he says, "Now that is a big door." Just like Kevin Flynn said, "Now that is a big door" in the first movie. little
Did the
callback.
big door in Legacy have fewer layers? It looked like it only had 2, and I thought the original had 3.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a different big door, but it was still a big door, which is the important thing.
They really needed the big door.
It's not a Tron movie if someone's not opening a big door and then proceeds to say, "Now that is a big door."
Yeah. He does his hacker skills and his stealth skills to sneak through the building, and then walks into the server room without checking for any sort of laser tripwires, which he walks right into and alerts a guard.
Yeah, he's breaking in, and while that's happening, it cuts to the like boardroom meeting thing where ENCOM is about to release their ENCOM OS 12 operating system.
It's their most secure yet.
What a scene this is.
Yeah, at some point it cuts to Alan Bradley, played by Bruce Boxleitner, who asks like, "What's new?" And someone says, "This year we put a 12 on the box," which is very funny. Yeah.
The boardroom scene is very, very heavy-handed.
We're Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah.
That's literally all it is. Like they're just like, it's just like a parody of Microsoft or something. It's so on the nose.
Although we don't even know what ENCOM OS is supposed to be. It just is.
It's
Yeah.
the most secure operating system.
It's
the
the most
idea
secure
of
ENCOM.
sharing.
Yet.
It's funny that ENCOM is more like on the nose parody of a tech company in this movie, because when I was watching the first Tron movie, ENCOM like doesn't really seem to be parodying anything.
It's like a video game company.
Yeah, they publish video games, and they also have a big lab where they work on digitizing objects. So
we make video games and
Yeah.
digitize oranges.
very diversified business. Yeah, the boardroom scene is kind of silly. Also, they show the lead of the software design team is revealed to be Edward Dillinger, who is the son of the ENCOM CEO from the previous movie. And Dillinger here is actually played by Cillian Murphy. He's not credited in the movie at all, but he is there.
For like 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's so funny. They did like they made a big deal of showing him as like the son of a major character from the last movie, and this is the only time he shows up. He does not show up again in this movie.
I could be completely making this up, but I want to say I feel like I heard once that he was in this movie in case there was a third one like made soon after. He would have been a bigger role, but I could be completely
It does
remembering
feel
something that didn't
like
happen.
this is getting ahead a bit, but it does feel like this movie was written to have a sequel in the next 2 years.
Yeah, Edward Dillinger will return in Tron 3. Yeah, so they have the boardroom scene. Alan Bradley is frustrated that ENCOM OS is not free. They're trying to do a thing here where ENCOM is supposedly now like a far more greedy company than it was when Kevin Flynn was running it. Sam successfully steals ENCOM OS 12 from the servers in the building before he's caught, and he releases it online for free. I'm unclear if he released just like the OS or the source code. I think it was just the OS.
And that scene is weird. That's the scene I was talking about where he just walks through a tripwire without realizing after being very careful. And like they hype it up to be sort of a suspenseful thing where like he's uploading the OS to his phone somehow, and it's taking a bit and the guard is coming closer, and then it doesn't even matter. Like why did they put that in?
So Sam proceeds to jump off the top of the building in a parachute to escape the security guard guy. But he's caught by police on the ground, and then he gets out of jail
In like 2 hours.
Home. Yeah, he goes home. Typical white privilege.
Yeah.
Goes home, and that's where Alan Bradley meets him.
And his home is like a storage unit. It's a warehouse or something. It's got garage doors on both sides.
Do you guys remember what it says on his house?
What?
Because that was another reference.
It was Ducat, right?
Dumond.
Dumond, yeah. Yeah, Dumond being the weird, like, priest guy from the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So Alan tells Sam about a message he got on his pager, which originated from Flynn's arcade, which has been shut off for like 20 years at this point.
The number's been disconnected for 20 years, so it must be Kevin because no one else could have gotten that number. That's not how phone numbers work.
Yep. And Alan still thinks that Kevin is alive, and he thinks Sam should go to the arcade to check it out. Sam goes to the now abandoned Flynn's arcade, and he flips on the power and turns on all the arcade machines and the sound system.
Some sweet Journey starts playing.
Yeah, I was about to say, one thing I like about this is Journey starts immediately playing on the sound system, which is what was playing at the arcade in the first movie the entire time they're at the arcade. And then the song that starts playing is Separate Worlds, which I'm guessing is like a Flynn being in a separate world.
Whoa.
Yeah. A little clever movie making. Sam discovers a hidden door behind the Tron arcade cabinet, and he goes down the stairs to like a secret basement area where there's a big like server computer thing. Where
but before he gets there, they dramatically show the arcade machine closing behind him as the song ends. And then they play the Eurythmics, but muffled, which is so terrible. How could they do
it's
that?
It's muffled because he's going down a tunnel, Zach.
Yeah, but don't do that to the Eurythmics.
Oh, jeez.
So Sam walks over to the big computer. It's another one of these like big table computers that was in the like ENCOM office and also the like CEO's office from the first movie, where there's like it's just a big table and there's a touchscreen on it with a touchscreen keyboard. And
one of those computers that no one in real life would actually want to use.
Yeah. Well, would you want to use a computer with so much dust on it, Joe? I didn't think so.
Just sitting there hunched over, looking straight down at the top of a table.
And then he logs in with the password backdoor, which is very someone writing a tech movie who doesn't know any tech.
Well, I was about to say one thing I do like in this is that, you know, this is like there's like a terminal thing in it, and some of the commands he's typing are actually like Unix commands. Like he types "Who am I?" and it says Flynn. That's the command to show like the currently logged in user on like Linux and Mac OS and such. So I do like that they mostly kept it real there.
Yeah, but he wrote that before he logged in.
Yeah, I mean it's still not like how this works, but I appreciate it when a lot of other movies just show like HTML code for this stuff.
Oh yeah, they do actually show Linux command output.
Yeah, this is more of a real computer than you get in a lot of other movies. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, they do enough to make it look believable.
And like any good computer expert, Sam immediately runs random executables.
Yeah, he runs the command to start the big laser that is behind him that I guess he doesn't notice. And
nope.
He is sucked into the grid.
With a brand new effect. The old Tron movie had the thing where it like froze you and you turned into a bunch of voxels and it sucked them away one by one. This one, it was just like a time warp into virtual space.
The effect on this one is very cool though too. Yeah. It's like one of those things with all the metal rods that you push your hand into.
That's true.
That's what it looks like. Oh, I love that you get a shot of what Flynn arcade looks like on the grid. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he runs out of the arcade, the digital version of the arcade after he gets in the grid, and then the movie pans up and it shows it's like the bottom layer of this huge like skyscraper thing. So he's on the grid now, and immediately he is captured for not having an identity disk, and he's put on a recognizer ship, which is the like staple shaped ship that was in the first movie.
What a glow up they got.
Yeah, they look so much cooler in this movie.
It looks very, very cool.
Well, they actually look like something, I guess.
Yeah, they're not just like 15 polygons. now would be probably the best time to talk about just like the general design of this movie. What are y'all's thoughts on how the grid looks and everything else?
It looks
I would,
awesome.
yeah, it looks a lot better. The old one was just a bunch of squares and rectangles because they didn't have the power to make anything better. This one has actual details. It kind of looks like a cyberpunk city, although there isn't actually any cyberpunk in this. But it's got that vibe of everything being neon, and it's always night.
This is one of my favorite movies in terms of design. I love how they made the grid look in this movie. It is still the same core design as the first movie, where like completely blacked out sky. A lot of the buildings are
No, it's not a blacked out sky. It's an always stormy
It's
sky.
clouds.
Yeah.
It's always like light electric storms in
Yeah.
the sky.
The environment is like what they probably wanted to have in the original one.
Yeah.
yeah, and like a lot of the buildings are like monochrome, but they'll have like these huge accent lights going up and around all the buildings, and it looks very cool. So Sam is sent to the games, and he's given different clothes
Games.
and an identity disc, and he's dumped into a Disc Wars game in this big arena thing. And this is, again, same thing as the first movie, where everyone has their disc that works like a frisbee, and the first person to strike the other person with the frisbee wins, and that person dies or gets de-resed, I should say.
And then the new de-resing effects are pretty good. They're actually kind of like the effect that they had in the original movie for transporting you to the virtual world, where like people turn into a bunch of voxels, except now they have gravity and they just kind of scatter and then fizzle away.
Yeah, like people like it's like a shattering effect that happens. It looks very cool. Sam is able to defend himself in the first 2 rounds of this game, and then he tries to escape, but he lands in the final battle with a program called Rinsler. And
The
Rinsler's
Rinsler.
cool because he has 2 discs, and Rinsler almost kills Sam, but then he sees Sam bleeding and realizes he is a user, which is the term for like a real human in the grid, as opposed to programs.
And
And
that was kind of weird to me. Why is that? Did they just do that because they had to? Like, it doesn't seem established. If he bleeds, wouldn't there be a way to automatically know that he doesn't have an identity disc because he's not a program or whatever?
Thing is that they, I guess, find programs that don't have identity discs. That was like what they were doing. So that part, the fact that he didn't have an identity disc wasn't unusual.
Yeah, but I'm thinking it felt like they tracked him down because they found him immediately and threw a spotlight on him.
But there was
So-
other people on the recognizer, so they weren't just like finding him.
Right, but it's like they detected, program without identity disk, and it feels like if a user's so different, why would that detection work the same way without it raising any flags?
I don't know.
No answer.
I don't know. Movie looked cool.
No comment. Yeah. So Rinsler sees Sam is bleeding and recognizes him as a user. He takes Sam to Clue, which is the program ruling the grid.
Codified
Which-
likeness utility.
Hadn't been revealed yet, right? Because he was in his helmet until
Yeah, he was wearing his helmet, and then when Sam enters the room, his helmet goes away, and you see
And
you
you
see
get a
the
jump
CGI
scare,
face.
Jeff.
Yeah.
I love that scene though. Clue is like pretty menacing in that scene.
Yeah, and initially Sam thinks that he's talking to his dad, like his dad's just, frozen in time. And Clue's using that to his advantage, where he asks some questions. He grabs his disc and then I guess like scans his entire life from the disc and learns who
Well,
Sam is.
Clue doesn't realize at first, he doesn't even clock the whole face thing, because it's not until Sam's like, that's a hell of a way to treat your son, and then Clue's like, oh, that, and then he realizes that he looks like his father.
I didn't read it that way.
Sam doesn't know who he's talking to
Yeah.
initially, but I think Clue does because he is acting like yeah, it's me, your dad. How's it going?
Yeah. And then he finally says later on that I'm not your father, Sam, and then Sam's like, "Oh, Clue." Like I thought he knew cuz Sam shouted out his name in the arena and Clue heard.
So, Clue decides to send Sam back to the games to die. And this time it's a light cycle battle, and Sam's on a team with some random programs, and Clue is on the opposite team. And this is another light cycle battle, like same concept as in the first movie, where it's like a big arena area where everyone's on these motorcycle like bikes, and the bikes leave a trail of light behind them, and the game is getting everyone on the other team to crash into either a wall or your light trail. So it's
And die.
basically like multiplayer Snake, basically. And but obviously this is a lot more intense than in the first movie because they have actual computers now and they could do cooler stuff. So the arena's
They
like
can turn in curves now.
yeah. It's not just locked to 90-degree angles. They can move around like a real motorcycle. There's
And up and
multiple like
down.
levels. Yeah, there's multiple levels in the arena. There's like cool swirly path things. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the light cycle stuff in this movie is incredible.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. The light trails for all these vehicles, they really look good. They kind of remind me of
And, like,
Windows 7.
The music. I mean, I can't believe I
Oh
haven't
yeah, the
talked about the
music.
music
The
yet,
music is
because
good.
literally Daft Punk is I think the reason why I actually went to see this movie in theaters. I had no idea what Tron was.
Well, it's definitely much more fitting music. That was something I remember from the original one. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's music here, but it doesn't really make sense.
Beep boop bop boop.
Yeah.
Beep boop boop boop.
Yeah. The music in this is great. It's a mix of synthetic sort of house EDM kind of music with a lot of orchestra. Some of the music in the scenes is like only orchestra, and then some of them are mostly like electronic music, and then sometimes there's a mix, and it's great. I've listened to the soundtrack an untold amount of times.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack definitely took on like a life of its own from this movie. Like it was, I run into conversations a lot where I'm talking about this movie and someone's like, "Oh yeah, I think I saw the movie once, but I've listened to the music a lot." It's
The soundtrack, I think this happens pretty frequently, actually. The soundtrack came out before the movie did. I listened to the music, like a lot of it, before I even saw the movie.
yeah. The soundtrack I think was ranking high on like Billboard charts for a while, and then eventually there was like a remixed version that came out later.
The funny thing I remember from the soundtrack is, like I said, I listened to it before the movie. So there's the first part where it's like Jeff Bridges, talking about the digital frontier and one day I got in. But then in the actual movie, he's like, and then one day, and then his son says he got in. I remember sitting there in the movie theater, like in my head, I was waiting for Jeff Bridges to say it, and I was like, oh, they changed.
Betrayed.
They threw me through a twist. The soundtrack's very good. I'm not going to play any of it in this episode because the YouTube version would get copyright strike from Orbit because it's Disney. But if you've not listened to it, you need to go listen to it. It's on all the music streaming stuff. You can go buy it. Great music.
Yeah. And to tie it back to Clue, the Clue theme that Daft Punk has, or I don't know if it is Daft Punk or the composer, but the Clue's theme in this movie is very cool sounding.
So they're doing the light cycle battle. The two teams are fighting until it's just Sam and Clue left.
Sam loses his bike, although he does have another bike on a stick that he just never uses. So he's just kind of standing there while Clue drives towards him. And then the car comes between them. and
Yes.
the person and it's like, get in, and he's like, who are you? And they're like, get in.
And then they blow a hole in the side of the arena and get out. It is revealed that the person driving the big it's like a all-terrain vehicle, but Tron. It's pretty cool.
It's the Tron duck boat.
I do like the first, like, she's like, get in, and he's like looking around like, and she's like, get in.
Yeah. So then they're driving away, and the person driving the ATV Tron vehicle.
It's revealed to be Olivia Wilde.
Yep. It's the program Quorra, and she takes Sam to the Outlands, which is described as like the outer part beyond the main city area.
Yeah,
where,
the Outland.
It's the Minecraft
exactly.
Farlands.
The whole Outlands thing and the tires not being that's part of this movie that you need to not think too much about.
Yeah, that was really strange. It was like, what is why is there terrain in the virtual world?
Quorra takes Sam to this secret base far out in the Outlands, and they go up a big elevator thing, and it is revealed that Kevin Flynn is living out here. This is where he's been hanging out for the past however many years.
And no one's been able to make tires to get him.
But he also looks... Is it just me, or did old Jeff Bridges look CG'd a bit as well?
I think he actually has the not prosthetics, but
I
he
think
has
they did
aging makeup
under his eyes to make him look tired.
Probably.
But something about his face movements even just seemed a little weird. Maybe Jeff Bridges.
They made him look
weird.
older than he really was at the time.
Yeah.
So they have a little hug. They hug it out. Quorra is revealed to be Kevin Flynn's apprentice, sort of, and protector. Yeah. I'm gonna call Sam, and I'm gonna call Kevin Flynn, just to make this easier. Everyone calls the dad Flynn anyway, so.
For our convenience, Corbin's going to use the characters' names. Thank you. I'm glad you didn't make up names that are not their names. That would have been really confusing.
Sam Flynn is also Flynn, but
he's Flam Sin. It's weird that Kevin Flynn ages in the virtual reality, where Clue doesn't. But then Flynn makes an offhand mention about how hours in the digital world is minutes in the real world, which, if he's been there for 20 years in the real world, wouldn't he be 500 in the virtual world, not just 60s?
That's a good question.
I think
if he's in his 60s, that means he's controlling his aging.
Or you age slower in the grid, but
maybe that is why they made him look older.
He doesn't look older enough.
Yeah, I mean, they probably realized that they needed to ignore that a little bit.
This movie's not realistic. He doesn't look like Yoda.
Yeah. It's not a very good movie if Sam goes to the grid and Flynn is dead.
Yeah. Well, he's a force ghost.
Wow, there hasn't been a user here in 500 years.
They are really inconsistent, though, about how much time a cycle is. They're where was it? They said a millicycle is 8 hours or something, and then they talk about seeing people many cycles ago.
Yeah, you can't.
That's hundreds of thousands of hours.
You got to turn your brain off. You can't. You can't go too far into this movie. You can't think about it for too long. Just look at how cool it is. Listen to music. We're moving on.
But it is weird that it's this big tech movie, and it feels like it's written by someone who thinks they understand technology.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It looks cool. One thing I do like about Flynn's character in this movie is that he very much acts like someone who got stuck in a computer in the 80s and was not allowed to leave or have any contact with the outside world. Because he does say you're messing with my Zen thing, man, and he says radical a couple times. It's the fun.
Radical, man.
Yeah, and also Clue kind of speaks like that.
And he also doesn't know about Wi-Fi. It feels a little weird that he's in cyberspace and doesn't know about cyber stuff.
The computer, I guess, was not connected to the outside world, except the pager, I guess.
Yeah, it had to have been connected to something.
I don't know. Again, don't think about it. Don't think about it for too long. Don't worry about it.
It doesn't have to make sense. It's made up.
It looks cool.
It looks very cool.
You gotta have a consistent universe, even if the consistency is about stuff that doesn't make sense.
No, you don't. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So the next scene is Sam, Flynn, and Quorra having dinner together, where there's like a pig for some reason on like a big plate.
It's a weird scene. It's like
where
they're having a banquet, and why do they eat? Where'd they get the pig? Where'd they get the green beans? Where'd they get the blue liquid?
For a digital frontier.
It's like in SpongeBob when Plankton has the holographic meatloaf.
It's very weird.
Where they
eating is never like shown any other time. There are drinks at one point again.
Well, Flynn needs to eat. He's human.
But
he's in a computer.
He's digital. That's
still
something
human,
about
though.
this the whole Tron series is that it feels like they were trying to make a metaphor for how computers work, to like adapt it more to be more understandable to a human world, or maybe this is even how your human brain would comprehend the digital world if you were somehow put into it. But then they also treat it literally as if that's actually what's in there. And it's like they're forgetting what they want to do with it.
I think Joe's onto something. I think it could be like a weird like psychological thing where maybe he doesn't need to eat, but because he's a person stuck in the computer, he's going to eat the holographic meatloaf.
Maybe.
Because also that's like he goes to bed too, but like would you need to do that if you were like a digitized computer thing? Maybe not.
I never took it as they get digitized when they get sent to the grid. It's more like they're getting teleported there or something.
But they have to be digitized.
I mean, he bled.
Yeah, that's why that doesn't make sense.
He's still human. It doesn't make sense if you think that he should be digitized, but it makes sense if you think that he should still be human.
But how can you be human in a digital world with their own logic of being quantized and digitized, as they say?
Because that's what the movie's about, Zach. The movie's about being a human in a digital space.
Anyway, so they're eating the holographic meatloaf, and this is when the movie does the big info dump, where Sam asks, where have you been this entire time? What's going on here? So Flynn explains that all of his nights going to the office were just him going to the arcade and going into the grid. He explains that he was setting up a new grid to be this digital utopia. They call it, quote, the perfect system. Flynn couldn't be there all the time because he had a job, and Sam and everyone else. So he created the program Clue to help him out, and he also brought Tron from the old system to this new one. And then they discovered the isomorphic algorithms, which gets called ISOs in the movie. And they're sort of like just like a native species of the grid almost. They're humanoid. They look exactly like the programs and the users. But they're not programs. They're like completely unique, supposedly like very intelligent. And Flynn gets this idea that like these ISOs are so intelligent and beyond humans that they could help solve all of the problems in the real world. And he thinks that the ISOs are going to be like his big contribution to the world, like introducing these to the world. But he built Clue with this intention of creating a perfect system, and Clue sees the ISOs as imperfect because they're not programs. They don't have, they're more
set directives.
Yeah,
they're fuzzy.
Yeah, they're more like the users, like actual people. They go to a scene where Clue is asking Flynn am I still to create the perfect system? To which Flynn says, yeah, in the funniest way possible. Best line delivery in the entire movie is Flynn just going, yeah.
Which is a classic Jeff Bridges voice crack.
Clue does a coup, and Clue coup, and he tries to kill Flynn. Flynn gets away because Tron is battling all of Clue's henchmen guys, and we're led to believe that Tron died here. And Flynn got away, but he couldn't get back to the real world because the portal to the real world closes after a certain amount of time. So he wasn't able to make it back. And
also like 1,000 miles away from where you teleport in.
Yes, yeah. Of course. So the portal closed on him, and it supposedly can only be opened from the outside, so he was stuck there, and that's why he's been in a computer for decades. So after they have that conversation, Kevin realizes Clue was the one who sent the message to Alan's pager, hoping to lure him into the grid, and instead Sam went there.
I don't think that's when he realizes. That's just when he explains it.
Yeah, probably. And and then they sort of explain that if they go to the grid, Clue will probably capture them, and it's a trap, so they should just stay where they are, like far away from everything.
And Clue wants to capture them because he wants Flynn's identity disc because it has some way or some power that could get Clue into the real world.
It's the portal key. It's the two-factor authentication token to the portal.
I think only the user's key identity disk can leave the portal.
So Sam wants to get to the portal really fast and then go get like Alan and try to figure out this from the real world, and Flynn just wants to stay and try to wait for like a rebellion against Clue to get out.
Because there is unrest happening, developing. So he thinks if he waits long enough, someone will take care of overturning Clue for him.
How would the unrest...
Then they still probably need to wait for someone else to go back into the grid, because I'm assuming that would happen after the portal closes. But again,
But they might be able to send a page.
That's true. They can page Alan again.
Yeah.
So Sam really wants to go. He talks to Quorra. Quorra tells Sam about Zeus, not Zune, Zeus. Sam goes into town on Flynn's old light cycle.
He gets to the edge of the city and runs into a checkpoint. And knowing that he would be identified as a fugitive, he sees a drug addict program, which is a strange concept, gives him the bike to drive in on, gets that guy arrested, and uses that distraction to sneak past the checkpoint. And then as he's walking around randomly, one of the weird women robots that dressed him for the games that we didn't talk about shows up and leads him into the club, saying she can take him to Zeus, because somehow she knows he's looking for Zeus.
Little known fact: the drug addict program was actually McAfee antivirus.
So they get to the end of Line Club, which is so named because that was what the Master Control program ended every message with in the original Tron movie. And they find Zeus, who is played by Michael Sheen.
Woo-hoo.
And they're talking for a while, and also while they're talking, it cuts a couple times to the people like DJing the club, which is Daft Punk.
It's the punks themselves.
But anyway, he's talking to them. He sort of acts like, oh yes, I can introduce you to Zeus. And then when they get in the like back room, he's like, oh, actually I'm Zeus. How's it going? and he's seemingly offering to help them get passage to the portal, which is wherever very far away from the main grid city.
For reasons.
But we find out he's just stalling until Clue's forces arrive at the club. And while this is going on, the movie cuts to Clue going to the now abandoned hideout in the Outlands.
Yeah.
Because they picked up the drug addict, noticed that the bike was Kevin Flynn's, and were able to trace it back to its origin. And then they had all-terrain vehicles.
Is so funny.
Yeah, the light cycle had an air tag on it, and they could find the owner.
What I don't understand is they had the flying thing then. Why didn't they just send people out on flying things to chase them when they were leaving the game grid initially?
Don't think about it. Don't think about it.
They can't follow us. We're an all-terrain
Don't think
vehicle.
about how they had the flying thing at the arena already, because that's what Clue came in on. But it's okay. Don't think about it. Keep going. So they have Clue and sort of his best buddies go into the hideout. They're kind of like poking around at all of Flynn's stuff. And there's a little flashback where we see Flynn originally creating Clue, and then Clue gets very angry, and then they leave there and go to the club.
I will say I was defending CGI Jeff Bridges earlier. I think this is the scene where it looks the worst, where it's super bright lighting. I think he looks the worst in this part.
You can see all the lack of details.
Yeah, you can see the maniac laughing where his face is not moving.
But when the Clue's forces come into the to the club, it starts a pretty cool fight scene where Kevin Flynn and Quorra show up because they had followed him when Kevin realized that Sam had left, and suddenly Kevin has like the force. So he dims all the lights by touching the floor, and weakens the bad programs, and it's cool, but it's a little silly.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a very cool entrance.
This scene is a little bit like the Merovingian scene in The Matrix, which might be on purpose, but yeah, it looks cool. It's a little silly, and then they escape. Quorra's injured, but they escape. They get to the elevator, and as they're escaping, one of Clue's henchman grabs Kevin Flynn's disc somehow, and then Michael Sheen de-reses that guy and takes the disc for himself so he can use it as a bargaining chip later on.
Yep. Flynn and Sam and Quorra are in the big elevator that's going down very fast. Quorra got her arm chopped off. Very unfortunate.
So sad. And looks dead, but is just hung.
Yeah, she's fine. She's good.
Just not responding.
Don't worry about it. Also, one of the best songs in the entire movie is when the elevator's falling down. It's literally called Fall on the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Chef's Kiss emoji. Great song.
I think you mean Jeff's Kiss.
Jeff's Kiss. So they stop the elevator. They get out. They're trying to think about what to do. Flynn agrees that they should just like bolt it to the portal. That's the only way to fix all of this. So they hop on a solar sailor, which is like functionally like a freight train in the Tron world.
I just realized it's a little weird that they have a conversation about what the sun is like on something called a solar sailor.
Don't worry about it.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is when he says, old man's gonna knock on the sky, listen to the sound. It's a very Jeff Bridges thing to say.
Yeah, so they're on the solar sailor. This is when Kevin Flynn basically like does debugging on Quorra, and they reveal that she is an ISO. She's the last ISO. And they fix her up. She's rebooting. Well, one of the things that like I really like Quorra as a character in this movie because she's very curious about the real world. There was a good bit earlier in the movie where Quorra's showing Sam like all of Flynn's books, and there's like a lot of like very old classic fiction. and she says that like Jules Verne is her favorite, and she asks Sam if he knows Jules Verne.
Oh yeah.
And he says, "Yeah, I know him." And Quorra says, "What's he's like? What is he like?"
That's a pretty funny line.
Yeah, I really like Quorra as a character in this movie, and in this bit she's talking about how she's read descriptions of sunrises from those books, but she's never actually seen one, and Sam tries to describe a sunrise.
And by the way, for anyone that wants to know what it's like having a toddler, that is what it's like when someone asks you to describe something that never in your life have you ever considered having to explain to someone. That is what it's like.
Why?
Yeah, so they have some good character development moments there, and then the solar sailor rolls into this big ship thing that is not supposed to be there apparently, and they go and like jump off the solar sailor.
Found some Nazis.
Yep. Yeah. So the solar sailor arrives at Clue's warship thing.
Big Lebowski.
Yeah. And
What do you mean, yeah?
yeah.
No.
It's canon. That's the prequel.
That's the name of the
Tron,
ship.
Tron, the big, yeah, the SS Big Lebowski.
I often refer to the Big Lebowski as Tron 1.5.
Okay, so they jump off the solar sailor, and they realize that is filled with a bunch of like wiped programs, and they realize that what Clue has been doing this whole time is because he's a program and not a user, he can't create programs, but he can rewrite them apparently. So he's been taking a bunch of programs off the grid and rewriting them as like his soldiers, basically.
I don't think this is a thing that was established before old Jeff Bridges says it in this scene.
Yeah. Well, they were alluding to like this big military operation Clue was doing, but no, I don't think they said like what specifically it was or what Clue was doing. But yeah, so they get to the big warship that's just like absolutely filled with these rewritten soldier programs, and
they've got an incredible chant, which is Clue ha he.
I never thought that was what they were actually saying.
I listened to it, and I think that's what they're saying, and it's really funny.
Yeah. Clue high knee.
So after they're getting off the solar sailor, and they see Renslers like patrolling the area.
Oh wait, hang on. I've got to rewind because I have this note here that's very important. They said they were heading east toward the portal. Now, why is there an east?
Zach, I swear to God.
Come on, that's a really
I was
weird
like,
one.
please tell me he's not going to say, why is there east?
Why is there east, Joe?
Why is there sky, Zach?
Well, the sky could be like a cool representation of electricity flowing. How is there an
well,
east
is this cool representation of the direction that way.
Why is
They
it
need to call it
east?
something.
It's toward the portal. It doesn't have to be east.
20 years ago, Jeff Bridges was in there teaching all the programs the directions.
And also how to farm pigs.
And green beans.
Yeah. East is where the pigs come from.
Ooh,
Are you telling me you eat this? Yeah.
I know. Okay. All right. So they're getting off the solar sailor.
What do you mean? All right.
They're getting off the solar sailor. They're trying to like sneak around the big warship, but they see Renslers patrolling this area they have to walk through. So Quorra runs up to him as a distraction, and she gets captured. And this is also the scene where Flynn recognizes that Rinsler is in fact Tron. He's just been reprogrammed in case you didn't get that from the previous scene where Tron is holding like 2 discs like Rinsler does, and also the fact that Rinsler has like the 4 Tron squares on his chest in the same way that Tron did.
Which are things you'd need to have seen the original for. So Corbin was lying in the beginning, basically.
I don't think you actually need to know that.
Okay, so Quorra gets captured, and then Clue does his big Hitler speech to all of his reprogrammed soldiers, where he reveals that his plan is to take the ship to the portal and invade the real world and make it perfect, just like he perfected the grid, which I think means more genocides.
Yes. And he points to like the command center of the ship, which is like a mile away, and the camera zooms in to Kevin Flynn's identity disc in the mount where he put it to act as the way to get through. And Kevin and Sam look up there and go, "The identity disc," as if they could see from that far away.
Yeah, well, Clue points to it in his speech and says it's the key, so they know where to go. They probably know it's the disc.
There's also a big white line of light coming from it.
So I know Zach has done like 30 debunkings of this plot so far, but I have to do my big one now, where like this is the thing that makes the like by far the least sense in this entire movie, is I don't know how the ship is supposed to work. How does that work? When the ship gets to the portal, how is it getting through? Or is it just like when they got to the portal, they like all step off and like one at a time go through the portal? I don't think that was the plan.
I mean, I think
the disc is in the ship. I think is the entire ship going through, and then there's just like a giant ship bursting out of the basement of Flynn's arcade in real life.
The thing I think to think about is Clue probably has no idea. Like, he doesn't know what's on the other side of the portal.
Maybe. I don't know. It's because they're definitely setting up like the ship is supposed to go to the real world because they have like all of these guns and tanks and stuff on the ship, like something you would take to a real battle. But I don't know how the ship was supposed to get through the portal. It would
be hilarious if like it wouldn't have worked anyway. Like Clue just doesn't know what's on the other side, and they get to the portal and like it just doesn't work. They all immediately die on the other side.
You know, again, something you're not really supposed to think about, but like I don't think there were any functioning examples of programs using the portal. So like with that, I don't know. Again, it's mostly the ship thing that bothers me, because like how is that supposed to go through? This is a portal meant for like one person at a time, but anyway,
it's like a video game, you know. As long as your hitboxes collide, it counts.
They just stand there for like 5 days straight, one soldier at a time. Zoop, zoop, zoop.
Hey, no pushing.
Wait your turn. Clue, he cut.
Rinsler, what did I just say about cutting?
And then he just makes a purring sound.
He does make a purring sound the entire movie.
I don't get that. Like what the whole like we have to change his name. It can't just be Bad Clue. Rinsler. That sounds awesome. And then he just makes weird like noise whenever they
Rinsler is such a funny name though. It's a meme name. Like, he's the Rizzler. You know? It's
the Riz King.
It's such a ridiculous name.
You could totally tell that they were just trying to come up with names that sounded cool, and someone said Rinsler, and they're like, oh yeah.
The Rizzler.
That's badass.
He's so cool.
Oh no, watch out for Twizzler.
So, after the Hitler speech, they know where the disc is, so Sam goes and grabs the disc with Quorra.
No.
And it is... What? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He
Incorrect.
rescues Quorra. I'm sorry. Okay.
Also not quite correct. He goes up to the thing, distracts the guards, fights them, kills everyone in the room, and then goes in and grabs the disc, and Clue's henchman is like, ooh, all glory to the users, showing that he has no backbone or something. It doesn't really matter. And then Rinsler shows up with Quorra, and they all fight, and Sam breaks Quorra out of the handcuffs or whatever, and then they think they've knocked him off the edge.
Yeah, they grab parachute glider things out of the top, so then Sam is once again dropping out of a tall building, and
And that's when Flynn says, "Radical man."
Yeah, it's very radical. They all get on the bomber plane thing. I forget what
this is like a Star Wars mothership that has a bunch of smaller ships on it.
It honestly looks a lot like a clone trooper dropship from Star Wars.
The whole scene is like clone troopers.
Yeah, so they're in they get a big plane and they take off from the battleship, and Clue realizes what happened, and he's very upset, and he kills his little henchman guy that's been there the whole movie. And
finally,
yeah, and they go grab their light jets, I think they're called. They're like little smaller ships.
Yeah, they're called light jets, and there's a huge missed opportunity. They could have called them light fighters. That would have been so much cooler.
The light fighters are pretty cool, I will say.
Yeah, they have Sam, Flynn, and Quorra on like this bigger, drop ship looking thing, and then Clue and all of his guys and Rinsler are on the smaller light jets, and they do basically light cycles, but dog fighting, which is the coolest thing in this movie.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
They do a lot of helixes with the light trails, and it looks very cool.
This is definitely the guy who went on to direct Top Gun Maverick.
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
He just really liked this. So they do a little like fight where they fly around and crash into all the light jets, and eventually all that's left is everyone in the big plane and Clue and Rinsler. And Rinsler's closer, and Clue's yelling at him to take the shot to shoot them down. And
end the game.
Yeah, and Rinsler decides actually just to back off because he's having like flashbacks that he used to be Tron.
He's unbrainwashing.
Yeah,
somehow.
And Clue flies up and starts shooting Rinsler. That they zoom in on him and they show him saying, "I fight for the users," and he slams into Clue's ship, and they both go tumbling into like this bottomless sea that's below them. And
Zach, why is there water? Why is there sea?
Yeah, that was strange. Like they showed quote water a couple times. That was like just a kind of thicker vat of small
Flynn
cubes.
had like a pond,
but then this is just straight up water.
Okay, so Sam, Flynn, and Quorra are continue flying towards the portal, and they go back and show Rinsler / Tron wakes up while he's falling, and the Clue's falling alongside him, and they tussle for a little bit, and Clue steals Tron's extra stick to spawn in a new light jet.
That he had for some reason, and that they decided to use in this scene, like they decided not to use in the other scene where they actually showed Sam getting an extra one.
There's one thing I learned about Rinsler. He's always got a stick in his pocket.
So Clue steals the light jet, and he leaves Tron to just drop into the ocean and drown. And as he's drowning, his lights flicker and then go back to white. So he's good now.
Good. Yeah,
he's good, but he's also dead probably.
Yeah, did they
Anyway.
resolve that, or did they just cut away after the lights turned white? I can't remember.
They cut away.
Oh.
So
Okay,
it means that he got to go to heaven instead of hell.
all Trons go to heaven.
yeah.
What's heaven for programs?
OneDrive, the cloud.
OneDrive.
Yeah.
That's one of the scenes, or one of the things that makes me think they really thought they were going to have a quick follow-up sequel.
So anyway, Sam and Flynn and Quorra, they finally get to the portal. As Clue's big ship is about to get there, and Clue follows them into the big portal room, and
Clue's
starts
already there.
Oh yeah, that's true. He had to do his big dramatic reveal. He's at the portal. Clue and Flynn have a little bit of a back and forth here, where Flynn basically says like, I created you to create the perfect system, but actually the thing about perfection is that it's unknowable, and I'm sorry, I basically set you up to fail. Can we hug it out? And Clue does not want to hug it out. He's still angry. So they have a little bit of a fight. Flynn gives his disc to Quorra, and Quorra gives it to Sam.
He had given it to Quorra on the
ship. It was on the plane.
It's something the viewer doesn't know about yet. They had switched discs, so Quorra went over to defend Sam, and then Flynn was like, "No, Clue, remember, you're here for me." And Clue's like, "Oh yeah," and turns around and goes away anyway. And then Sam and Quorra go to the portal, and then Clue grabs the disc on Flynn's back, and that's the reveal. It's like, oh, this is the wrong disc. And as he walked towards Flynn, the bridge they were on started separating, like retracting, which Clue must have triggered. And then when Clue realizes he has the wrong disc, he does a big jump back over the gap.
Yeah.
When he could have just closed the bridge.
So Sam and Quorra are standing in the portal. They're about to get sucked back into the real world, and
sucky.
Clue tries to make a run for it and goes into the portal with them, and Flynn activates his
reintegration
thing,
which is a thing that was mentioned earlier in the movie as a possibility for destroying Clue, but Jeff Bridges could never do it because it would kill him as well, because he wouldn't be able to handle it or something.
Yeah, and so they're out of options. So now he's doing the reintegration, and then we get our last look at Clue is perhaps the most horrifying, where he's like getting sucked in, and his face is like partially in the portal, yelling, and it is the worst.
It's like all his skin is being pulled back.
Yeah, it's the worst Clue in this movie.
This is the really weird part. Like, Sam shows up in the basement alone. Right. And runs up to see Alan and has a conversation with him about vaguely wanting to restore the arcade and how he was right about everything. And then he walks outside and Quorra's there with a motorcycle.
Yeah. Okay, no, actually, I think there can be an explanation for this, in that we know time goes faster in the grid. So maybe Quorra went through the portal first and she walked out, and then Sam showed up. Maybe that was it. Or maybe it's...
No, you've got the time relation backwards there, Corbin.
I think it could be even simpler than that. The way that I have always interpreted this scene is this is not immediately after they got back.
That would make sense, because they when they cut to the above, in the actual arcade, Sam just kind of appears after he's in the basement. The machine's completely closed. There was no sound from it, the door opening or anything, and he's just kind of there. So that would make sense. Maybe there's a deleted scene that has a better transition. But
I just feel like maybe they felt they didn't need to show it again.
Well, they could have shown him walking through the arcade door.
They ran out of money by that point. They had to wrap it up.
It was just as it's filmed, it's very weird.
Well, you're right about having to wrap it up, because it does end basically immediately.
Yeah. So Sam importantly makes a backup of the computer on a little SD card, and then he goes and gets Quorra, and they drive away on Sam's motorcycle, and Quorra gets to see a sunrise for the first time.
Well, she doesn't. That was the funny thing. Like, why didn't they refilm that? Because it was like 10 a.m. in the in the scene.
Well, she's feeling sun on her face, and she's like enjoying it.
But they
That's true.
did the big hype up of there's nothing like a sunrise, and then they don't even. It's not even a sunrise.
Shut up.
Yeah, Zach. I've had it. Shut up.
I've had it with you poking holes in my favorite movie.
Zach, you need to go watch like a biography or something where there's no suspension of belief, just the facts.
So yeah, that is Tron Legacy. It is my favorite movie. It generally received mixed reviews when it came out. People really liked how it looked and the music and some of the acting. It made $400 million at the box office on a budget of $170 million.
That doesn't seem very good.
I mean, it's not awful.
No, it's not terrible. They still made a profit, but
yeah, well, it's funny because it set this movie up to be exactly what happened to the first one, where it was successful, but not really enough to justify immediately doing a sequel. So the same thing happened where nothing really happened for a long time, and this movie slowly became more of a cult classic. And the only like Tron media related thing besides there were some games after the movie came out is there was a Tron Uprising animated TV show on Disney XD, and I haven't gone back and rewatched that, but I did really like it at the time. It had a very cool animation style. The guy who did who helped with the soundtrack for Tron Legacy did the soundtrack for that too, and it's also on like all the music streaming services, and you can buy the soundtrack and so on. It's pretty good. Not as good as Tron Legacy, obviously, because it's a soundtrack for a kids animated TV show. So I don't think Disney was willing to spend quite as much money, but it's pretty good. The show also it was also kind of interesting because I think it only had one season, and it ended on a cliffhanger. And there were plans for another Tron movie, and it kind of just sat in development hell for a while. In 2017, it was announced that there was going to be just a reboot instead of another sequel. And then at some point after that, it turned back into a sequel, and it got the name Tron Ares. And that movie is supposed to be released in October of 2025. So stay tuned for the movie club about that one
in 2040.
In a very long time.
Hopefully with that one they actually write a plot.
I don't know. I almost think they should.
I think there's a plot in this movie.
Yeah, there is a plot. But maybe I should say hopefully in that one they write a consistent universe.
I like this movie. It's not my favorite movie, but I've seen it enough that I didn't have to rewatch it to do this podcast. I've seen it very, very many times.
I don't know if I'd call it a well-written movie, but it's entertaining to watch. It looks really good, except for Jeff Bridges, the CGI Jeff Bridges, and the soundtrack's good. So like, it's worth a watch, I would say. Like, it's not unbearable to watch.
No, I think that I like overlook a lot of the plot holes in this movie because I think they were like with the way it's set up in the 80s, like the original movie. There's a lot to like write around. There's just a lot. No matter, there's like really no way you're gonna do this. Like, oh, what if computer programs were people? There's just always gonna be a bajillion logistical things that don't make any sense when you're trying to write a story in that universe. And I appreciate what they were able to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think they did a terrible job, and they didn't fall into the horror movie trope of the main character is just doing stupid thing after stupid thing.
Yeah, and they do try a little bit to have like underlying themes in this movie, right? The idea that like perfection is unobtainable, and they do very clear like Hitler Nazi analogies with Clue. So Tron Legacy is anti-Nazi. That's great. Another reason why it's the best movie.
But there are people who idolize Clue on Twitter.
Probably.
Wait, he's the bad guy?
We're not going to look into that.
Clue just wanted to make the grid great again. That's all. So that is Tron Legacy. Does anyone have plugs before we get out of here?
You're going to say, does anyone have questions?
Any questions from the audience? Don't ask about the pigs or what East is. We've been over that.
Where can we have people send all their complaints to Zach?
At Tall Schmo on Twitter.
Yeah, go ahead, do it there. I don't use Twitter anymore.
At Tall Schmo at mastodon.social or whatever your domain is.
Mass.to.
Go forward all of your complaints about Zach to Joe.
To Joe.
And then
he won't do anything about it, but he will feel very satisfied.
I will enjoy reading them. It's true.
Yes, and you can also follow Tech Tales on Mastodon at techtales@mas.to. The link to the teaser trailer, a couple other things are in the show notes, along with a link to go watch the movie. Also, links to support the show are in the show notes if you want to do that.
Tech Tales is supported by viewers like you.
Yes, viewers like Clue.
No,
that didn't work. That's okay. All right, thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your podcast feed soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.